Whakalahi atu, kia ora koutou katoa. Welcome to you all today, and especially as Maria just said, those of you who've blown in from windy and wondrously hazardous weather spots in the country. It sounds like it's been pretty full on. My name is Jennifer Lay, and I'm here in Ōtautahi, and I have the privilege of sharing and chairing today's meeting with you, but sharing around the adult ACE, adult teaching standards with you. And here in Ōtautahi, it's been pretty gusty too. But I'd like to welcome you all, and before I introduce our panelists today, I'd like to invite us all to read along or share in your own space with a karakia. And of course, it is a fitting one today because it is starting off about those winds from the west and the winds from the south. So I thought that is particularly appropriate. Me karakia tātou. Whakataka te hau ki te uru, whakataka te hau ki te tonga. Kia mākina ki uta, kia mā taratara ki tai. E hi ake ana te ata kura he tio, he hoka, he hauhu, ti hei mauriora. I have the privilege of presenting online workshops, and it's wonderful today to have three fabulous people to support me. So it's not just me in this 1 hour. As you can see, I've had a varied background in adult education and always had a strong commitment to the ACE sector. So today is session 9 for the year, and this one we've titled, as you can see there, around the idea of celebrating, celebrating differences, creating an inclusive learning environment. So 3 people have been selected to talk about their inclusive learning environment, and I'm sure you'll learn lots from them, but as well, it'll be good to hear a little bit from each of you too, so feel free to write any comments in the chat as we go. So I know sadly we don't have time to hear from you all and have an opportunity for whakawhanaungatanga, but the best way we can do that is to invite you to write your name, your role and your location in the country in the chat. Okay, so the ACE teaching standards give us a sense as adult educators of, what makes a good tutor. And these are the 3 indicators that really speak to today's session. So you can see there it's about analysing learner information to reflect on, evaluate and improve the effectiveness of teaching. So we'll hear from our 3 panelists about how they create an inclusive learning environment, keeping in mind evaluation and effectiveness. As well, it's examining their own beliefs and impact on practice and the achievement of learners. So that will have a sense of, will impact, but rather on how they create an inclusive learning environment. And the last one, which I know all educators do, is foster trust, respect and cooperation with and among our learners. So these standards set the scene for today's session, but of course there'll be lots more as well, but I just wanted to give you a sense of those. And if you haven't come across the ACE teaching standards, feel free to find them on the ACE website. It talks about the teaching standards there. So this is our kaupapa for today. We've already had an opportunity for whakawhanaungatanga. We're going to move very shortly to our panel discussion, and then there'll be an opportunity for you to ask questions in the chat, but also live if you'd like to as well. And then there'll be a time at the end for evaluations. I now have great pleasure in introducing you and welcoming our 3 panelists today. You'll see them live soon, but here are 3 photos that I happened to find of our panelists. So they'll let you know where they're from and their role, but we have I've started alphabetically, so we'll start with Romana Betu first, then we'll move to Cameron Forbes, and then we'll move to Te Atahia Te Whare Hanganui. So a very warm welcome if everyone could show your appreciation online. And welcome our three panelists today. Thank you so much for giving up your time. I know that you did feel some trepidation about being online and talking about your own inclusive learning environments, but I knew that you'd be able to share with us lots of great information. So I'll hand over to you, Romana, to introduce yourself first, then we'll move to Cameron, then to Tahia, and then I'll ask you some questions around your inclusive learning environments. So over to you, Romana. Thank you.
Awesome. Thanks, Jennifer. Whakalofalahi atu ki matolwoti, talofalava, and malosui for maua, everybody. My name is Romana Fitu, and I'm one of many of the team at 360 Tautua Trust. So our heart and vision is all about Tautua Malealofa, which is to serve with love. We work alongside our Pacific seniors, our mātua, where we deliver programs that focus on their well-being, learning, connection, and culture. A lot of what we do is about creating safe and inclusive spaces where our mātua feel seen, valued, and celebrated. So whether that's through our movement, and arts programs. For example, Eva Malikoko, our carers programs, Manulua, and our digital literacy, which we deliver across the motu. Currently residing in Otautahi, Christchurch, but born and raised in the heart of South Auckland in Otahu. Got three children here, and we're currently loving it in the south. So the sun is out, and yeah, totally blessed to be here today. Thank you.
Kia ora, thanks so much, Romana. And it's lovely to know you're here in Otautahi as well. And then just a bit further up the island, we'll hand over to you, Cam, to introduce yourself, please.
Kia ora tātou, ko Cam Forbes, toku ingoa, and ngā mihi to you, Jennifer. And at Ace Aotearoa as well. I was thinking what a gift this was to be able to reflect on 30 odd years of teaching and how any teacher that's been doing it for 30 years would love to give you their opinions on everything, and I'm no different. So, I started thinking about when I actually did start teaching, and it was in 1991. I was teaching software to oil traders, of all people, and also the evenings I was teaching martial arts to my peers, my fellow Kiwis in London. And then in 2000, I kind of gravitated towards teaching as a living and went to teaching English as a second language. And then in 2010, I recognized some of the names in the chat too, like Lloyd from Paeroa, moved to Literacy Aotearoa and had 12 years managing and latterly teaching there, or tutoring. And out of that came a program which we developed. I see corrections in the house as well, for corrections for young men on probation. And since about 2020, actually, I've just been working on a program which we run. We have our own trust now called Intentional Education Nelson and Tasman. And we have a program called Maranga, which we run for tāne aged 18 to 30. Some are with corrections, but it's really about life skills, adventure, te ao Māori for tāne aged 18 to 30. That's about me. I live in Whakatū, Nelson. A couple of grown-up kids making trouble at university at the moment, and wife and a dog, and that's about it.
Fantastic. So thanks so much, Cam. And what Cam didn't say is the program was awarded Community Program of the Year Tangata Whenua at this year's ACE Aotearoa Awards. So that's something that you can be very proud of. And I know you also were part of a group that was awarded it many years earlier as well for tangata tiriti. So you've had a wonderful education career that's been great that it's been celebrated because of the variety of work you've done too. So thank you, Cam, for that. And then we'll hand over to Tahia, who also has won one of the ACE Aotearoa Awards as well for Educator of the Year. So kia ora, Tahia.
Tēnā koe, Jen. O tira tēnā koutou katoa, te atahia hurihanga nui tēnei, he mokopuna o te Wairarapa, Ngāti Kahungunu ki Wairarapa, rangi tāne Ngāti Hāmua. I was born and raised here in Masterton, Whakaoriori, Wairarapa. My heart home is Te Whanganui a Tara, Wellington, where I spent most of my life. And where I met my now husband, but we have returned to Wairarapa to raise our 2 children. So I am a mother first and foremost, and I think my mother and her mother and my father's mother were all the very first educators and teachers that inspired me to become a teacher formally and in my professional life. So I'd like to say I've been in education for all of my life and perhaps even before the womb, but I suppose what is most relevant to Ace Aotearoa at the moment is that I am currently the founding director of my own business called Reorua Limited, and we're an education consultancy predominantly working in the space of te reo Māori, tikanga Māori, te ao Māori, cross-sector. So I go into workplaces, whether they're government departments, private organisations, or community-based organisations, to help with cultural competency, cultural safety, learning about Te Tiriti o Waitangi and our other founding documents of Aotearoa New Zealand, as well as the historic context of those really important parts of our shared identity. And I'm a language teacher as well. I also, like Cam, want to acknowledge lots of the hononga and the connections and the weaves we have with people online. In a past professional life, I worked at Community Probation and Psych Services, it was called, in Lower Hutt for a time before moving to Wellington. So have a bit of history in the Department of Corrections myself. And I can see Central Otago REAP, I can see ELP, a few of my current and recent clients through Reorua Limited. It's really nice to see you all here. I think I just want to state that we're here in Wairarapa and the wind is blowing really, really fiercely. And I feel like there's kind of a transformative change in the air, and part of that change are conversations like today. So really, I just want to acknowledge Jen for setting this up. Thank you, Jen, for having us, and I'm looking forward to the kōrero from my peers as well. Tēnā no tātou.
Oh, kia ora, Tahia, so generous and yeah, transformative change. That's interesting, isn't it? That's a lot then, isn't it, for you, Romana and Cam, now to carry and present? But I'm sure you have the experience to be able to do so. And yeah, we're really pleased at Ace Aotearoa that the 3 of you were able to free up your time and share about your experiences. And as a facilitator, I've had a lot to do with the 3 of you around the motu, and know that you do wonderful work in your communities and have a fabulous leadership role. So it's been really special to be able to ask you 3 to talk about your practice. So I will start then with our first question, and if Romana, if that's okay, we'll go back to you, please, to start, and then carry on with Cam and Tahia. What does an inclusive learning environment mean to you in practice? So that's the first question. So please, feel free to share about the people you work with, the communities you work with, and how you make them as inclusive a learning environment as possible, because there'll be lots of crossovers, I'm sure, with people listening. Thanks, Romana.
Thanks, Jen. Yes, so the people that we, or our heart and vision, as mentioned previously, is for our Pacific seniors. So they range from, say, 60, and the eldest we've ever taught across the motu is 92.
Wow.
And so we're sitting there amongst our treasured seniors, and with gold, it's an absolute blessing. And so for me, inclusion really means creating a space where every matua feels a sense of belonging, where they walk in and feel that this space was made and created for them. And in practice, it's about honoring who they are, their culture, their language, their humor, and their pace. So we normally start every session with prayer, because that's what grounds many of our elders, our Pacifica communities. We always share food, of course, because they have no filter and will tell us exactly what we're not doing right and what we need to make the program or the workshops better. And first and foremost is, of course, the kai. And then, of course, we've got music and laughter. And so these are powerful tools or teaching tools in our culture. And so we always try and incorporate that in everything that we do, in the mahi that we do. And just making sure that the environment feels like home. So, whether they're sitting around a circle, in a circle or around a table where they have easy access to each other, the talanoa, the conversations, and just making that space available for them. Our mātua are storytellers in itself, and so it's just also being able to take on board what it is that they want to gain from the digital sessions, or whether whatever program we're delivering, and just making sure that it is inclusive, and whether that's through photos, so always trying to have that connection with back home, and whether that's through photos of the islands or songs, or just examples of their family and life and growing up, and you don't need to tell them to share a story, that those stories can go on, and it just has a domino effect on all of those around them. So, and that just allows also them to engage deeply. So for me, inclusion isn't just, about access, it's about that connection, heart to heart, person to person. And that's how we are able to deliver the programs in a way where we're taking it back home for them, and creating that village life for them, so that they're comfortable, and that they feel that this, like I said previously, created for them. So it's not different from anything else, that this was done on purpose to support them, and allow them, or give them the tools where they can thrive.
I love that, Romana. Give them the tools where they can thrive. Yeah, that's fantastic. I love that. Love how you're honouring your treasured seniors. Yeah, and you would be perfect to do that. So that's beautiful. Prayer, food, music, laughter, songs, stories, talanoa. It sounds excellent. Maybe I'll be 60 soon and can join. No, mate, sorry. No. I joke, of course, but it sounds fantastic. Let's move to Cam. Can you tell us now about what an inclusive learning environment means to you in practice?
Yeah, I've kind of jotted a few ideas down, but I just want to point out first, Romana, I love how opposite ends of the spectrum we are. I'm working
Yes.
with Māori Tāne, you're working with older Pacifica whānau, and still, you just said honouring who they are, absolutely key to any teaching, I would have thought. And you also said no filter. Oh yeah, I get that. We get that as well. So, but anyway, to me, inclusive learning environment means that the people there feel welcome, affirmed, accepted, comfortable, not judged, and ideally motivated to learn. It means that there's a reason for being there. You might have created a space using karakia, checking in, parking their day, having an icebreaker or a warmer. In fact, I always want the perfect warmer. This is what the perfect warmer does. It assesses prior knowledge, it sets the context, it provides motivation for the learning to follow. But I never get that right. So I just establish connection, and then the rest, and as long as people are feeling valued and they know that you're happy they're there, then the good stuff follows. Also, as far as the environment goes, it could be a room with posters and walls up, or a blue wall like this one, or it could be up the road at the Brook Sanctuary. I've taught lessons at the outdoor meditation classroom. We did a meditation there, or it could be on a waka ama looking at landmarks from the sea, from the moana. So I don't think there's a one ideal learning environment for me, an inclusive environment. But what is common is that people feel comfortable and they're present to the conversation that you're having. And also there is a consistency to the way I set up space and the way that I act when I'm conducting any kind of session. So I'll have a structure for our time. In my mind, I'll have a structure for our time together, which I hope will work. And I have activities which have intention to them. Most importantly, I've got you and your best interests in mind, and I'm holding you in unconditional positive regard. The pressure's on me as a facilitator not to waste your time and to have you depart with something of value and also some understanding which you haven't had before, which you didn't have before you arrived. I guess the other thing which I want to say at this juncture is that if people who are watching have disagreements or additions to what I'm saying, just jump right in, unmute yourself and bump in. I'm fine with that. That's how I teach anyway. Often the flow gets distracted and we kind of, we just weave around until we get to where we want to go to. Yeah, so that's what I have to say on the inclusive environment.
Great, thanks, Cam. Yeah, and feel free too, participants here today, if you do want to add to that too, because there's lots that each person is saying already that is really important. And I love a lot of what you were saying, continuing on from Romana's kōrero, Cam, about no filter and honouring. But it's I especially like that you talked about the structure too of the learning environment, like the icebreaker. Is there such a thing, as you say, as a perfect icebreaker? But what is important is about the connection and how you get to know people, give them activities and as I said, have a structure so they know there's a purpose to the learning environment, and as well as all of the things you said about not judging them and making them feel welcome. So thank you. There's lots there, lots of really important points. It's lovely to hear it from each of you. Let's move now, thank you, to Te Tahia. If you could share with us the answer to, or your response to that question, what does an inclusive learning environment mean to you in practice? Kia ora, Tahia.
Thank you. I acknowledge probably what sounds like the common theme, which is that I, like Cam and Romana, both honour the person before the learner and really value what it is that the individual people walking into a learning space that perhaps I'm holding can bring, constantly bringing, and perhaps using opportunity as much as I can to connect with the person and to develop or build, maintain relationship. Like Cam, I do have quite a varied education background and experiences in different learning environments. So for the specifics of my answer, I just want to anchor that this is probably most relevant to Reorua Limited, which is a business, which is cross-sector, and I do acknowledge that a lot of the people coming to my learning environments created through that are people who are investing time and money for specific learning. So there are expectations there. And I think Cam really kind of stated it and articulated it beautifully, is that balance of a considered, planned or structured approach alongside the ability to adapt and be flexible. Because you can be as planned as possible with lots of wonderful ideas, but if the whole heart of the learning that you are sharing pivots for whatever reason with the energy that perhaps someone is carrying, or the trend of the time, of a conversation that is happening outside of that learning space and coming into the learning space, we need to be as flexible and adaptive to those moments. And a lot of the rich learning that I've seen, particularly in my career, happen with that ability to be as fluid as white as water. So an inclusive environment looks like honouring the person before the learner, developing and maintaining relationships. An inclusive space also is about honouring what feels safe to everyone, and I can't assume that. So allowing a chance for people to feed back and to tell me and to communicate in various ways. Participation. And that might be participation in my planning and feedback on what I'm doing and how I'm leading and how I'm guiding, and probably an open mix of methodologies and approaches, trying to include as many visuals, sensory learning aids, kinesthetic experiences, time outside of four walls, and then of course coming back into the online learning environment, which I think is quite relevant to lots of the educators here. How do we create the same sense of safety, the same sense of relationship in an online environment? Well, I try my best to bring a lot of the tikanga that I would usually have practically in a classroom or a physical learning space into the online space as well. So I think part of that is being implicit and simply weaving in ritual. And some of it's about being explicit and being transparent about what the learning environment is supposed to be like and what perhaps is going to work best, but always having that open communication. So in conclusion, ako, always recognising that I too am a learner as I teach or guide. Kia ora.
Kia ora, Tahia, and thanks too. I like that, honouring the person before the learner. Yeah, that's a lovely expression and lovely way to work. And thanks for talking about the balance between being flexible, but having the structure. And yeah, I like particularly that you talked about different approaches that you ensure that you incorporate those into your inclusive learning environment. And thanks for mentioning online too, because yeah, I guess for me, I probably have made the assumption of face-to-face first, but of course it's all of learning across online and face-to-face, and how do we make any environment as inclusive as possible. Okay, so this time perhaps we'll start in the middle. We'll start with you, Cam, and then move to Tahia, and then move to Romana this time. Thanks, everyone. I can see there's a comment in the chat from Marie. All are welcome in the space of learning, indeed. Thanks, Marie, and that's true to everyone. And welcome to those of you who have joined since I connected with you in Whakawhanaungatanga. Let's move to the second question, starting with you, Cam, please. So can you share a time when celebrating differences with your learners led to a richer learning experience for everyone? So I'm sure you've got a story here, Cam.
You know, I had to scratch my head for ages because I couldn't think of a time. No.
Right.
But I did
Okay.
think of a couple of times, actually.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I think the best one was I was at literacy, and I finally had landed a bloody workplace literacy program, which is anyone who manages literacy knows how hard that is. And it was at the DHB delivering a computer course. So I went up to the Māori Health Unit, Te Waka Haora of the DHB, and was delivering there to about 4 or 5 wonderful people, wonderful learners who would accompany Māori patients into the hospital and make them feel culturally at home in a very awful system, you know, and do what they could to make them feel, to just facilitate their journey. And so after the sessions, it happened to coincide with when they were doing kapahaka and waiata. So I used to stay for the waiata sessions with them. And it was so great because it would really round out our interactions together. And I got to know them on a different format, and we made some kind of lasting bonds. In fact, this was about 6 years ago, and I'm still talking with a couple of them now. And we have one who's gone on to, she chairs, or she's responsible for a community panel for young rangatahi and tāne who have broken the law, and they go through a community panel to make amends without having a criminal conviction. And I'm just probably going to be serving on that shortly. So we're still talking 6 years later because of the lovely bond that we formed from something that was not part of a computer program at all. So
wow.
that
Lovely.
that was the kind of one I liked the best, which I thought.
Yeah. Beautiful. Thank you, Cam. Did you have another one, or are you happy to move on?
I think we should just move on, otherwise I won't work all day.
All right. Thanks, Cam. Okay, let's move. Thanks for your story, Cam. Let's move on to you, the power of waiata. Yeah. Let's move on to you, Tahia, please.
Totally resonate with that, Cam. I think I struggled with this question the most because of how many there were and how to choose one. And then my husband walked past as I was scratching my head when I was writing notes down for this panel discussion, and reminded me of one that I talk about all the time in our personal lives. So I'm going to share it here. But it was in an early iteration of Reorua. I was still tutoring as an ESOL teacher at the Community Ed Centre in Wellington. And one of my most favourite jobs in the world and in my career was going along to the Newtown Community Centre twice a week for a few hours on Mondays and Friday mornings, and to hold space for new migrants, new immigrants and refugees trying to resettle here or settle here in Aotearoa, New Zealand, as a new home, as a new place that they were trying to find a sense of belonging in. And their courses kind of followed a term time. So I had that really lovely opportunity to build those relationships I was mentioning earlier, to kind of develop as much as I could within that learning environment. But week 10 of each course would be shared kai day. And it was always something that everyone anticipated with lots of enjoyment, with lots of excitement. And we would always open it up to family members if they were able to bring along family members, because by that stage we'd learnt so much about them. And I can tell you in one particular year, there would have been about 50 different ethnicities represented in the kai and in the people in the room. And we had family members as young as newborn babies to the partners and wives and husbands of some of our students. And it was just a really beautiful celebration of the world in a classroom, if you like. And what I really, really enjoyed was the joy that food brings, because, of course, food attaches to memory and to stories, and in this particular case, stories from home, the different homes that these people were perhaps not able to see again in their lifetime. That they were trying to keep alive. So a very emotional time for all of us, me included, and two particular Assyrian men I keep dear to my heart. They would call me daughter. And after the course, while they were no longer students of mine, they'd pop in every once in a while, knowing that I was continuing the course with other students, and they'd pop in and ask, oh, just wanted to check how our daughter was doing. And of course, newer students would continue to get quite confused, because we certainly didn't look anything alike, and my other students had already met my father. So there I was with three fathers too, who were Assyrian. But you know, that lovely deepening of connections through storytelling and memory, I will never ever forget. And then I suppose just an attachment to that, allowing kind of the more candid approach to opening up the storylines, you know, not necessarily having any learning outcomes in that session, and allowing people to simply be who they are fully. So, of course, hearing the different languages, and at one point we had a sing-song happening in the corner, and someone was inviting us to their French cafe opening, and so on and so forth. So absolutely an exciting time, and I will forever remember it.
Oh, thank you, Tahia. And just such beautiful stories. It's really heartwarming to hear them. And in this day and age when so many things are ignored or negated or cut, it's so refreshing to hear your lovely stories. And I'm sure you have an equally special one. Thank you, Romana. If you could share your story too, please.
I think, like Cam and Tahi, I think we could go on forever with all the stories and the experience that we get to share. But just one that I do like to share, here in Ōtautahi, we're now delivering our second cohort of one of our programs called Ewa Malikoko. And this program, Ewa Malikoko, translated, is basically a space where you come together to share and have a hot drink, whether it's a cocoa, coffee, a tea, or whatever it is. And then that creates an environment, or a safe environment, where they can just, like a casual conversation. And like back home in the islands, that's what a lot of our people did. They'd sit around, at the fire, or in their whales in their huts, and just sip on something. So here our program is called Ewa Malikoko, and in particular, as part of our program, we bring in health services and providers. We also do excursions. So on week 7 of our first 10-week cohort, we decided that we'd bring them out here to Kaiapoi and take them on the river
Nice.
here. And we took them on a boat on the boat ride where they an hour and a half boat ride, and we had a mix of Pacific seniors who took about, say, I think it was 28 of us, 28 seniors plus our volunteers of the day, and we had two 8-year-olds who joined us as well. And I think for me, the experience that we got that day is that, of course, it's the boat was already had the public on board as well. So there was a mixture. For a lot of our Pacific seniors that never been out to Kaipoi, let alone, while, being in Christchurch. And, we had our meal, and then they started singing their songs. And we actually got asked by some other seniors, Palangis on the boat, oh, do you mind? It's my wife's 80th birthday. Can you sing
Oh,
happy birthday in your language? So, of
oh,
course, first of all, there was a little bit of like, okay, which language? Because, we had a few different Pacific seniors. But of course, the Samoans were pretty strong and staunch. So they sang it in the Samoan language. But I think the beauty or the richness that came out of that was that it didn't just stop at happy birthday. The Palangis who were on the boat kept requesting more songs, and then people on the boat, strangers got up and started dancing. So, it was
oh.
just a reminder of the, when we celebrate differences, learning becomes more than education. It becomes joy, pride, and identity. And that day, our seniors became teachers too,
Mm,
sharing their stories, their song, and dance with, everybody else on the boat. And it was just really warming to see. And that's something that I will always, cherish. And, so yeah, I left that excursion, reminded that the richest learning moments happen when people bring their full selves, so they were able
mm.
to fully be themselves. And those around them just really embraced it. I mean, even the captain started saying stuff on the boat, on the mic. He was supposed to, tell us the story and the history of where the boat was going, but instead he was saying more, 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 and I think that was, yeah, that's something that we will be able to cherish, and for our people to be able to share their stories and their language and culture into that space was gold. So, yeah, thank you.
Beautiful. Oh, that just stories just get better and better. Thank you, Romana. And for those of you who are not in Ōtautahi, Kaiapoi is about 21k from Christchurch City. So that's maybe, help you visualize that it was quite a significant outing for these people, in Romana's group. To travel out, but I mean, importantly, it's about, yeah, as you say, the joy, the pride and identity, the singing and dancing. And I love your expression, the richest learning will come when people bring their full selves. Yeah, that's beautiful. Thank you for that, Romana. And certainly I've had experience of working with you in Tamaki Makaurau and working with your Pacific seniors. And from my point of view, I know I'm not meant to have favourite groups, but honestly, I haven't laughed so much ever in one day workshop when I worked with your Pacific seniors. They were really treasured, and they certainly loved their laughter and singing. So a lovely memory for me as well. Oh, we could talk all day. Anyway, I better keep us to time. So we've heard some really positive stories. Let's just have a look now, though, at a bit of a challenge story here, or it's a question rather, and that's about, adjusting your teaching. It happens for all of us. We see certain learners who are not fully engaged or don't feel connected to the learning space, and we can all see them. They can be there on the fringes. Whatever environment we're in, we'll see those learners and we just know they're not fully engaged. So I know those people here from corrections and literacy, etc., will know who I'm talking about. All of us will know those learners. So I'm wondering if we start with you, Tahir, and then move to Romana and then Cam this time. How do you adjust your teaching when you notice certain learners are not fully engaged or represented in the learning space? Thanks, Tahir.
Yeah, thank you. This was a tricky one for me because of my current situation, in that, yes, usually I'm in an online space, so it is quite hard to pick up on things in the moment. So I'm very much looking forward to perhaps more elaboration from my colleagues. But I think one thing I at least attempt to do is to honour it, to name it. And to check in. Is what I'm feeling, is what I'm sensing, is my instinct correct? And that's kind of the open door, really, for, okay, so what next? But again, seldom do I have the time in the moment to perhaps manage it effectively. So part of naming it, honouring it, is acknowledging that it is there. I have noticed, opening up a dialogue if there is one, and then trying to pivot in the moment if I can. Often I cannot, simply because of time and perhaps the sheer number of other learners I'm having to manage, and following up. So lots of kind of admin work in the background, lots of planning, trying to adapt for the next session, and lots of comms between sessions. Going back to how do I adjust in the moment, I think the other thing is, recognising our ako status is always being transparent about ourselves when we're making mistakes, and perhaps when we have come unprepared for certain learning needs. So something that has happened really recently is not being fully equipped for learning needs, such as people who are deaf and cannot hear what it is that I'm saying, and perhaps not having the correct interpreter support and things like that, and having to simply own the mistake and sit in the discomfort of that. I think that has made a huge difference in the moment of recognising my need for adjustment. But I'll keep it brief for now, and I'll pass it over to my colleagues just to see if there's anything else that they might want to elaborate on.
Thank you. Thanks very much for your honesty, Tahia, there. Appreciate that. And we'll hand over to Romana now, please.
Thanks, Tim. I think with our mātua that I've learned to teach through talanoa and relationship first, and I think that's something that's very evident when it comes to our Pacific seniors. So those who may seem disengaged, I don't assume they're not interested. So it's just taking the time to talanoa with them. Sometimes it is the language. For all, English is a second language for them. So we find that we've got to do a lot of bilingual talanoa and conversations. So really grateful for our team who come on board. So we do try to organize that pre-program. So when we know or determine how many of a specific, Pacific nation is attending, or island, then we will make sure that we reach out to our facilitators who are fluent in those languages and bring them in for those specific sessions, and also just adjusting by slowing down, using visuals, repeating steps, pairing them with another mātua who can maybe explain things better in their own language if we do not have somebody on hand. And sometimes it's changing our examples, the way that we are explaining things to be more relatable. So a lot of them light up when you say, okay, everybody Google your village, or go onto YouTube and put in your village name, and then the songs of the village come up, and straight away they're like, oh, I can relate to this. And they start singing along, and just really, just really engage. And they know that, we're actually catering the program to them. So just also making sure, checking in on whose stories are being told. If I notice that a culture is not represented, then I intentionally include it in the next session, so that it's, it isn't static. And it's just living practice of adapting, noticing, and making sure that no one is left behind.
I like that. No one's left behind. Very similar too. Yeah, thanks, Romana. And over to you, Cam.
Kia ora. So I just want to acknowledge a couple of things that my colleagues have said. Firstly, the reflecting and planning between sessions when something didn't go the right way, and go away and think, now how am I going to do it different next time? That's really great. And also just to acknowledge the difficulty of pivoting mid-session can be really hard when you haven't got something else that you can pivot to, or just trying to think in the moment when you're kind of in the headlights at the same time. And also to Romana, the relatability of the content. Man, if the content's relatable, it's half your job's done. So anyway, with disengagement and trouble with engaged learners, I just want to welcome everybody to my world, because that's kind of where I spend all my time with some young tāne, or actually in literacy too. You've all seen it. People come in from the school system and they've been told they're dumb and learning is lame. And so, you know, it's about, firstly, it's about having it all pivots on the relationship. It all settles on the relationship. I mean, if you've got the relationship, then everything else kind of falls into line. And personally, I hate leaving a learning space thinking that I have failed to connect with the people there, or to get to provide something that's been worthwhile. So the responsibility for engagement, it's a partnership, but I'm leading the partnership, so I take that quite personally. And assuming that I've got I'm lucky enough to have a cordial and functioning relationship with the learners, then I'll just, as Tahia said, I'll just name it. I'll say, hey, what's up? You know, so what's not connecting, and can we attack it in a different way? Or I always give people the option to check out. If we're doing a group thing and someone's not feeling the love, then they can just do whatever they want. You know, there's no need for them to join us, but if there's a way I can facilitate them coming back in, then I will. And it has its limits, though. There was one guy I worked with who would insist on coming up to the whiteboard and tagging his Yurata hard tag all over the whiteboard as we were speaking, and while other people were trying to concentrate. And so, you know, that it does have its limits as to not distracting others. But, you know, it's being flexible to kick out, and also brave enough, but confident enough just to abandon your lesson if it's not happening, and have something in your back pocket. I always have some cards or some, you know, some game to play that they can have some fun, and I save face as much as anything, you know, because I don't want to be, it's just a bad feeling when you go away feeling like, shit, that was horrible. You really use your gums. But at this juncture, I'd also like to acknowledge our brothers and sisters who are striking on Thursday, because I really feel for those who have to teach a school curriculum or unit standards. You know, you've got your hand, we get to teach the stuff that we love. So for me, it's easy. You know, I teach Nathan Wallace's brain structure stuff, and all the boys love it. They lap it up, and they've got full engagement for at least half an hour, which is a long time for these guys. And so, you know, if it's something that they can relate to, it's really good. And so many times, I haven't done it, rest assured, but I've been so tempted on occasion to teach the maths around drug dealing, because you know they'd be fully into that. So, you know, it's about stopping, checking in, having the relationship. And I also have to say on the relationship is you kind of need to have, if I can say it, some shit happen, because when something happens and they can see that you're good to them and you hold them in high regard and you don't admonish them or treat them like they were at school, then suddenly the relationship gets deeper. So you kind of I almost not look forward to, but I'm really kind of happy when something happens in a way. I mean, within reason, of course, but, you know, often when others see that you are dealing with someone who's disengaged in a respectful way, it brings the rest of the group along with them too.
Great. Wow, there's so many pearls of wisdom there, Cam. Yeah, there's lots I'd love to unpack, but I'm really conscious of our time. But I can see lots of people have sent emojis and responses to what you've said. So thank you so much. And we really are going to have to move quickly to end. I just want to check if there were any questions in the chat from anyone this stage. We've just got a couple more questions, but I think I'll just ask the last one before we move to our evaluation, or any other final questions. And if you could be just quite quick with this, even though I'd love to hear more, we're just getting close to time. But if you had one piece of advice to educators beginning their journey towards a more inclusive practice, what would that one piece be? And I'll start with you, Romana, please.
Awesome. Thanks, Jen. I think for me, it's definitely start with the heart before the lesson plan. You know, learn who the learners are, not just their names, but their stories, their families, their faith. Spend time building that connection. before you even start teaching. Really get to know them. Their whakawhanaungatanga is
Yeah.
key to the success of the delivery of the program. Be flexible. What works with our one learner won't always work for another, and that's okay. Don't be afraid to slow it down, to simplify it, or laugh at things when things don't go to plan. It's okay. Inclusion is it's not about perfection. For me, it's about the people, and it's always been about the people. And when we put the people first, everything else will fall into place.
Beautiful, beautiful words. Thank you, Romana. Start with the heart first. Yeah, lovely. And moving to you, Cam, next, please.
I just going to reiterate what I said, which was have your lesson planned and in your back pocket, have your hopes, what you want to communicate there, and then be prepared to deviate or even give it away if you have to. If the group goes in a different direction, because it might go in a wonderful direction that gives you teaching opportunities that you didn't even know you're going to have. Focus on the connection first, always the connection, yes, just as you said. And for me, having some fun, I really love to have fun when teaching, and we know that fun helps learning anyway. And it sounds like your class in Auckland there, you have that in spades. So there's not everybody has to be that way. Like some teachers aren't fun, and that's just great. Some tutors aren't fun, but they still do a fantastic job. But for me, that's part of the class because I just get really bored. I have a very short concentration span. So if I'm having fun, it just makes things just go a lot easier.
Indeed. Yeah. Cool. Thanks so much, Cam. Yeah, I love your ideas about that. Have something in your back pocket. Yeah, that's great. I haven't heard that, but I totally connect with that too. And last but not least, for the final words today, Tahia, from you. Thank you.
I suppose it's remembering that educating is multifaceted, multi-skilled, and emotionally transformative. So if one can maintain their own love for learning, I think that really helps. And understanding that learning is lifelong, not just for our learners, but for ourselves.
Beautiful, beautiful words to finish with. Lifelong learning, transformative and multifaceted. Wow, that's been a fabulous session, you three. I know you were worried you didn't have things that you could share, but you totally have. And I love what Lilia Akidiona have said about beautiful panel. Thank you for sharing your hearts and experiences. It's beautiful. Thank you. So you do have a chance now to reflect on today and to ask questions in the chat. But importantly, you can also think about this in reflection. I like this model of, we've heard a lot this afternoon. So what's that going to mean next time for you when you teach, when you set up a learning environment? How inclusive will you make it? And who will you remember? Whose words this afternoon? Is it Te Tahia's? Is it Cam's? Or is it Ramona's words? Which ones have really spoken to you, have really resonated with you? We have an opportunity to have our karakia, but before we close, I just want to thank you sincerely, Ramona, Cam, and Te Tahia for your time this afternoon, but importantly for your wisdom. It just is wonderful to hear of your experiences, your stories, your beautiful commitment to your learners. And I really am very grateful, and I know the participants here today are as well. I'm sure in the chat and in the feedback and the evaluations, we'll hear from people who will share that. So thank you so much for your time and for being willing to step up and talk about this important subject of celebrating difference. And we celebrate you. So if everyone could just show their appreciation today online. Any final words, Cam or Tahia or Ramona?
Yes, there's nothing to lose by being inclusive in our work. There's only gain.
Do you mind saying that again, Cam, please?
Nothing to be lost. There's nothing to lose by being inclusive in the way we work. There's only gain.
Yeah. Great last words. Only gain. Fantastic. Beautiful. Okay, anything, Tahia or Ramona? Sorry, I can't see you just quite now, so If you're shaking your head, I can't see you, sorry. But I will lead us with our karakia whakamutunga. Me karakia tātou, ka mutu a mātou mahi, mō tēnei wā, manakitia mai mātou katoa, o mātou hoa, o mātou whānau, ai all ki te orangi. So peace to you all, and wherever you are in the motu, have a wonderful rest of the week.